All right, guys, I'm going to be reading an article on ABC News titled Hip Hop Mogul Sean Diddy Combs Acquitted on Most Serious Charges in Historic Racketeering Case. And the subscript says, Combs was convicted of 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. This article is by Aaron Katersky, Peter Lambos, and Caitlin Morris, and it is dated July 2nd, 2025, 2:06 p.m. In a split verdict, hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs was found guilty of 2 of the 5 charges he faced, but was acquitted of the most serious charge, racketeering conspiracy, capping a high-profile trial in Manhattan federal court. Combs was also acquitted of 2 counts of sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion pertaining to former girlfriend Cassie Ventura and another former girlfriend who testified under the pseudonym Jane. However, the jury found Combs guilty of 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution, 1 each for Ventura and Jane. Combs faces a maximum prison sentence of 10 years for each of those counts. Following 6 weeks of testimony presided over by U.S. District Court Judge Arun Subramanian that saw the prosecution present 34 witnesses and the defense present none. The jury of 8 men and 4 women deliberated just over 2 days before reaching their verdicts. The verdicts sparked mixed reactions at the Lower Manhattan courthouse and beyond. Combs got down from his chair and knelt on the floor after the verdicts were read, appearing to pray while some of his attorneys embraced. Marshals then escorted Combs out of the courtroom while some spectators in the gallery cheered and applauded. Subramanian said he will decide whether Combs will get released Wednesday before he adjourned the court. He said that the decision might take some time, including giving lawyers time to write letters arguing for and against release, but that it will happen sometime Wednesday. Prosecutors asked for a few hours and the judge gave them until 1 p.m. Eastern time to submit their arguments. Sean Combs' bail hearing was set to occur 5 p.m. Wednesday. His attorneys argued for $1 million bond, while prosecutors claimed he poses a danger if released. Prosecutor Maureen Comey said the government plans to pursue significant incarceration for Combs. Defense attorney Mark Agnifilo said that Combs should be released Wednesday. I am not saying it is not a serious crime. It is a crime of a vastly different nature, he said. I believe that a significant change in conditions is warranted. Although the jury did not find Combs guilty of sex trafficking Cassie beyond a reasonable doubt, she paved the way for a jury to find him guilty of transportation to engage in prostitution. Douglas Wigder, the attorney for Cassie Ventura, Sean Combs' ex-girlfriend and a witness in the case, said in a statement, "By coming forward with her experience, Cassie has left an indelible mark on both the entertainment industry and the fight for justice," the statement continued in part. "We believe and support our client, who showed exemplary courage throughout the trial. She displayed unquestionable strength and brought attention to the realities of powerful men in our orbit and the misconduct that has persisted for decades without repercussion. This case proved that change is long overdue, and we will continue to fight on behalf of survivors," the statement concluded. Sex crimes deeply scar victims, and the disturbing reality is that sex crimes are all too present in many aspects of our society, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, which prosecuted the case, said in a statement. Victims endure gut-wrenching physical and mental abuse, leading to lasting trauma. New Yorkers and all Americans want this scourge stopped and perpetrators brought to justice. Prosecuting sex crimes requires brave victims to come forward and tell their harrowing stories. We and our law enforcement partners recognize the hardships victims endure and have prioritized a victim-centered approach to investigating and prosecuting these cases, the statement concluded. Combs was initially indicted in September 2024 on charges of racketeering, sex trafficking by force and transportation to engage in prostitution. A superseding indictment in March 2025 included additional allegations of forced labor under the racketeering conspiracy count, while another superseding indictment the following month added an additional charge of sex trafficking and one of transportation to engage in prostitution. Federal prosecutors accused Combs of using his many businesses and the people he employed to run them to conduct a criminal enterprise to illegally coerce women into sex and conceal his alleged illicit conduct to protect his reputation. The alleged activities included sex trafficking, forced labor, interstate transportation for purposes of prostitution, coercion and enticement to engage in prostitution, narcotics offenses, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice, according to the indictment. In addition to the racketeering charge, the indictment also included 2 separate counts each of sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution, both involving 2 alleged victims. Combs' attorneys countered that Combs may well be a violent man, one who indulges in unconventional sexual conduct, abused illegal drugs, and committed domestic violence, but he wasn't part of a broader criminal organization. This case is about those real-life relationships, and the government is trying to turn those relationships into a racketeering case. Combs' attorney, Tenny Garagos, told jurors in her opening statement, "The evidence is going to show you a very flawed individual, but it will not show you a racketeer, a sex trafficker, or somebody transporting for prostitution." The prosecution called 34 witnesses over 6 weeks of testimony, beginning with Combs' former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, whom Combs was seen physically assaulting in a widely circulated hotel surveillance video from 2016. Other witnesses included 2 alleged Combs victims who testified under the pseudonyms Maya and Jane, as well as 2 male escorts who testified that they were paid to participate in so-called freak-off sexual encounters with Combs, Ventura, and other alleged victims. The jury also heard from witnesses to alleged abuse and sexual acts, and a forensic psychologist who testified regarding why people often remain in abusive relationships. One of the most high-profile prosecution witnesses was Scott Mescudi, aka rapper Kid Cudi, who testified that he was told Combs allegedly broke into his home and had someone set his car on fire after learning he was dating Cassie Ventura. Combs previously denied any involvement in the car fire. The defense, which twice during testimony unsuccessfully asked the judge to declare a mistrial, called no witnesses before resting their case on June 24th, just 2 hours after the prosecution rested theirs, electing only to read additional evidence into the court record. Combs told the court at that time that he did not wish to take the stand in his own defense. Federal prosecutors the following day told Judge Arun Subramanian that they were no longer including attempted kidnapping and attempted arson as underlying crimes in the alleged racketeering conspiracy charge against Combs. Instead, prosecutors signaled that they would push sex trafficking and forced labor as primary predicate acts that the jury could find to convict Combs of racketeering conspiracy. Defense attorneys had argued that no evidence was presented directly tying Combs to the arson that damaged rapper Kid Cudi's vehicle. Defense attorneys also argued that the alleged kidnapping of Combs' former employee, Capricorn Clark, by Combs to confront Kid Cudi was far removed from the heart of the case. Federal prosecutors did not elaborate on their decision in their letter to the judge. The prosecution delivered a nearly 5-hour-long closing argument on Thursday, June 26th, summarizing 28 days of testimony and evidence. The defense spent 4 hours the next day presenting their summation, followed by the prosecution rebuttal. Deliberations began on Monday, June 30th, after Judge Arun Subramanian gave the jury their instructions. On Tuesday, the jury told the court that they'd reached a verdict on 4 of the 5 counts with which Combs was charged. They were unable to reach a verdict on the first count, racketeering conspiracy, prompting the judge to instruct them to continue deliberations. And that is the end of this story so far for tonight. I don't really think we need to analyze anything. Just listen to the words from ABC News, which I think is a reputable source in this case. It's just giving us general information, but you can kind of come to your own conclusions about whether or not Sean Combs was truly guilty of racketeering conspiracy based on what evidence was presented, and whether he was guilty of the other 4 counts of crimes which were read in that article. So there you go, guys. Enjoy. I'll try to think about it and give you something else to go on this with, but I think just having this primary source, in Word saved somewhere where we can go back and find it later is what really matters right now. So I kind of personally feel like justice hasn't been done. I really feel like justice hasn't been done. I feel like there were probably the elements in the case to actually prove that racketeering conspiracy, but I wasn't there and I didn't have any power to make that happen specifically, but I can obviously speak out about it now. So there you guys go. See ya. Bye.